All right, let's talk about cults. People like to throw that word around, and they like to throw it around in relation to Scientology, so let's just take a look at it. Here we go.
But basically, all a newspaper is trying to do to you is worry you. That is the total dramatization of the press. Worry. We've taped something else here in the not too distant past, which is anxiety and fear. These have been the stock and trade of the hypnotist, the messiah, the hocus pocus, the prestidigitosis, the medical doctor. They've all been talking for a long time about anxiety and fear. And if you can get anxious enough, we can collect our fee. No, I don't say that's their motto. It isn't written on their doors. I've exaggerated if I've given that. It's hidden.
All right, so let's talk about cults. Now, first of all, if you're new to this channel, what I'm doing is I'm hooked up to an e-meter here. I'm not auditing myself, but it just maybe gives you a little idea how the needle looks, how the meter looks, and that it's not this spooky, scary thing. Anyway, there's other videos that I'm going to create, and we'll do more stuff about the e-meter. But the subject is cults, and L. Ron Hubbard, the excerpt I just played, he's talking about newspapers, medicos, hypnotists, religions. All these things try to, their stock in trade is worry, anxiety, fear, etc. So they're working hard to get across a very low attributed type of responses in people. So that's something we got to be aware of. If we're going to talk about cults, let's not ourselves fall into one. Now, I'm a Scientologist. I've been one for 47 years. I don't consider that I'm in a cult. Of course, I'm outside of the church, but we'll go into that too in a second here. First of all, let's put up some definitions. First definition is one we can look at. It's a system of religious belief, one not recognized as an established religion, sort of a fringe type thing. People worship according to such a system, and they're labeled as a cult. Now, that's a key feature that we have to remember. Keep in mind that it's used as a, what's the word, purgative, as a derogatory term, obviously. But there's a lot of different types of cults. So it's also something that can be very popular, like you know, a set of beliefs, a cult movie, the cult of celebrity. Can go on this definition, but let me just catch one. There's another key point here, another definition. Again, the religious connotation, but in this one it says often living together. That's a key component. So these religious cults, where you really the deep, dark, dastardly ones, and Scientology has this, the Church of Scientology has this component also, where they have the living together, and that's the Sea Org. But other religions, like there's an example here, the Hindu cult of Shiva. So a lot of religions, whether it's the Catholics, the Jews, the Mormons are considered a cult. The Islam has their cults. In fact, you've got the war going on right now between the Sunni and the Shia. The Sunnis consider the Shia a cult, and vice versa. So this idea of a cult is tossed back and forth, and people are, you know, using that as a label for anything they don't agree with or they're not part of. I want to bring up this image. It's a painting and ceramic that's in the Palais Royal in Paris, and the inscription, you probably can't see it there, but it says cultus, so it's about cults, but sursum corda, which means to lift up your heart. So there's a long-standing component in religious doctrine that it's an uplifting activity or pursuit. Now, people who are quick to label, for example, Scientology as a cult, they overlook the fact that there's a lot of cults that are going on. Like LRH was just talking about doctors, but you got politicians and all these kind of gurus, from Tony Robbins to people that'll change your life, and people just love cults. They love to go off and follow these gurus. There's a cult of Apple people that won't use anything but Apple products. Uh, so but you've got things like environmentalism and all kinds of collectivism, socialism, democracy, economics. All these things become somewhat like cults. And not to pick sides, the more conservative or whatever, they have the flag, they wave the flag at you, they stir up all this military patriotism and so forth. These are really cults, and there's people just, like I said, love their cults. Now, when we look at Scientology, I used to, or still somewhat jokingly, say I've been a Scientologist for 47 years and I've never been in a cult. And so the first thing that people don't make, they don't differentiate between the Church of Scientology and the subject itself. So I've always felt that I had the ability, the self-determinism, and we might as well make a point of defining that right now. But self-determinism, as opposed to, or along with pandeterminism. So if one has their own self-determinism, and a higher attribute would be pandeterminism, being able to see all sides and all points of view, then one is freed up from the cult mechanisms of any group, whether it's Scientology or anything else. Now, in Scientology, the real cult, if you get down into the core of that, is the Sea Organization. The Sea Organization, they have that component I mentioned a little bit ago. They live together. They live in a communal situation. They have basically a dictator running or giving them orders, and that is the core cult. And they spread their toxic effects among the parishioners who don't really know some of the details of what's going on within that hierarchy, that core group of Sea Org members. So if you want to call Scientology a cult, you can say yes in the Church of Scientology, but more specifically in the Sea Organization, that is the cult and the core of it. Now, I don't feel that I have to necessarily agree with all the people that want to use this label of cult. You've got these people that are have created a cult of their own in attacking Scientology. So it's a long list. I'll put a few pictures up there. You don't have to go far. You don't have to. It doesn't take long when you're doing a search on Scientology to find who these people are. But almost all of them, except for the case of Ortega, but almost all of them were in the Sea Org. They have, that indoctrination runs deep. They were either legitimately damaged, or they're just in a cult that, like in the case of Ortega, where they hate religion, they hate Scientology, and their hate drives their push to make people feel as if this is a bizarre, weird cult. Which, like I said, I agree that the church and the Sea Org is, however, the subject, and people like myself outside of the church are not. And at some point in time, the the whole protest or the push to reform the church was hijacked by this hate cult, and so it's no longer just a whistleblowing activity, an attempt to reform, or a desire to reform the church, but it's destroy all of Scientology. So the cult thing is a double-edged sword. Be careful what you are calling a cult, because you might look around and you might be talking to somebody and telling them, hey, anything other than Apple is trash. And, so be careful. Now, the point I made a minute ago about self-determinism and pan-determinism, the way out of any cult thinking, cult agreement, cult connections and control is to increase your own self-determinism, your own pan-determinism. So being able to rise up above these mechanisms of control that, whether it's religious, political, economic, environmental, whatever, all these people trying to push their agenda on you, learn to think for yourself and get above those things. And I feel like I've done that, and so therefore I say I am not in a cult. You're free to disagree. Please post your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe to this channel. We'll be coming out more with more along topics like this and examine them further. So thanks, and look forward to seeing your comments. All right. Bye.